I think once people think about this story, they think about the Netflix documentary Seaspiracy and how it opened their eyes to the problems of overfishing in our waters. How much do you think that really helps in your business right now?
Well, we certainly could not have timed the release of the documentary, but indeed, I think the awareness has really skyrocketed over the last 2 to 3 months. A lot of people who never realized that our damage to the ocean is up to that level of devastation, and how our survival, and particularly with climate change, it is deeply related to what we do to the ocean. And that is a lot due to overfishing. So the timing happens to, I guess, really work out.
Yeah, I mean, it's still quite niche, right? When it comes to plant-based seafood. How far do you think this can go? There's some people that say, look, it's very difficult to replicate the same kind of taste that you have for seafood. Do you see this growing as much as, Omni Pork or Omni Meat grew?
Well, I guess the same skepticism happened a couple years ago when we first launched the plant-based pork product. I mean, people were like, is there a need for this? I mean, how will consumers react to this? And of course, what's the quality? But in our, limited until yesterday launch, in our limited tasting and blind tasting as well, I mean, people obviously with our range of products, they were blown away by how similar, or in fact, they are not able to, if you don't tell them, they may not be able to really tell that this is not from real fish. So, and then I think the bigger picture is that we are running out of fish in the ocean. I mean, 90% of big fish are gone, and a lot of studies have shown that different species and the distinction in terms of many different species are really happening. So from a big picture standpoint, change needs to happen. And of course, the technology, the research, and the quality is really taking leaps forward since many years ago.
So, David, having said that, how are you looking at the market potential, especially in Asia, where the likes of Southeast Asian countries like, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, they're big on seafood. I mean, what kind of market share are you potentially looking at?
Well, Asia consumption of seafood makes up for 73% of global consumption. So really, I mean, when it comes to seafood, I mean, Asia is the biggest consumer. And now, within the plant-based alternative segment, it is actually a big white space because a lot of people, including us, of course, we have been developing plant-based pork. A lot of companies, of course, developing plant-based beef and chicken. But right now, seafood or plant-based seafood only makes up for less than 1% of the plant-based alternative market, when the seafood actually makes up for 17% of total protein market. So what that means is there is a huge lag when it comes to a seafood alternative. And then, of course, that demand is happening in Asia. So we see huge potential. And of course, that goes global. It's not just limited to Asia, but that can absolutely be global.
And to that point, you're already in California, for instance. You've raised about $100 million so far. Given your growth plans, is there a need to raise further funds? Are there IPO plans? What's the deal here?
Well, we are in 20 markets right now. We're just entering the Australian market, the US market, the UK market. Our OmniPork range of products will be in retail in multiple chains, including Whole Foods Markets, Sprouts, coming Q3 of this year. So in terms of expansion globally and also the range, the pipeline and the R&D, all of that, we are clicking on all cylinders. So indeed, of course, the funding that we have raised up to this point has been instrumental in terms of providing us with more momentum and more resources to go forward. And we are always talking to partners and potential investors who we believe are synergistic in terms of really accelerating the impact going forward.
So does that mean that you're not planning to go public anytime soon?
Well, that is something that will lead to more study and more planning. Nothing we can disclose at this point. But no doubt we are always evaluating all different options that are best for the company.
All right. You mentioned a little bit more about how seafood just has more options, right? Because you have everything from lobster, crab, all the likes of fish. from an ESG perspective, I guess, now you seem to have a very big voice to kind of move, to kind of spur this movement, I guess, when it comes to alternative plant-based seafood. What sort of products do you think could have the greatest impact, you think?
I mean, the old fish, I mean, when it comes to seafood consumption, I mean, fish, of course, is the dominant part of it. And that's the reason why with this launch, we are not just launching one type or one SKU, but actually we're launching from tuna, salmon to different kind of fillet, burger forms, and then the deep fry kind of fish and chip style. And then what we call the classic version, which works very well for Asian cuisine, and leave it to the chefs to design how they want to cook it, whether they put it in hot pot, in deep fry, pan fry, you name them. So that range, really, the reason why we come up with such a comprehensive and holistic range of products this time is because collectively they can create the biggest impact and leave many choices for consumers and chefs to decide, what kind of products they like, and of course based on culture as well.
Yeah, I think David is waiting for a Omni chili crab to launch in Singapore soon. I was going to ask about pricing because I mean, you mentioned, yeah. I was going to ask about the pricing because OmniFoods, you're able to lower your price to reach price parity with pork prices in Hong Kong. I mean, that's obviously because we've seen pork prices surge in Hong Kong. But do you think that's sustainable?
Well, I mean, we just announced a 22% price reduction a few weeks ago. And we do believe that with even better economy of scale, there's no reason why cost and price cannot come down even further. And the reason for that is when it comes to plant-based protein, we are simply shortening the supply chain. I mean, we are eliminating, obviously, the whole animal factory farming, all the process and resources and labor that need to go into that, not to mention the risk. With swine fever, with avian flu, and with COVID, I mean, there are all sorts of risks that come from our ecosystem, particularly from animals right now. So, we just see that with demand growing, and of course, with our own optimization as well, there's a lot of room for even greater affordability for consumers.